Well, good day, everyone. I'm Gina Rubel, and we are going to be talking about the ethics of generative AI in law firm marketing. Ethics is always a fun thing to talk about. I'm the CEO and General Counsel of Faegre Drinker Communications. I'm also an attorney, and this is just something that we all have to be talking about. But more importantly, I'd love to introduce Shawn. Shawn, would you like to tell everyone who you are?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Shawn Swearingen. I'm Chief Innovation Officer at Faegre Drinker. And thank you, Gina, for having me. I'm so happy to be here today. In my role at Faegre Drinker, I collaborate with our clients and our colleagues across the firm to identify and deliver on initiatives that create a culture of innovation and open minds to new ways of doing things. Of course, that includes generative AI, as that's still fairly new. And really, it's whether you're using new technologies, existing technologies, anything to address business challenges for our firm and our clients, collaborating in new ways, advancing ideas, or creating process efficiencies. And my team does everything from data science and analytics to client value and pricing solutions. And I also support our Faegre Drinker Legal Design Lab, which is a really long-standing partnership we have with Stanford University's School of Legal Design Lab.
Well, I have had the singular pleasure of being introduced to you by another Gina, by the managing partner of your firm. So I want to give her a shout out and say thank you for the introduction. And also thank you to Lawline for hosting us today to have this very relevant, very timely discussion. So, and this is part of an ongoing series about generative AI, which seems to be one of the hottest topics in legal and elsewhere these days. So I'm really happy to have you here, Shawn. And I'd like to start out with the definition of artificial intelligence, and then we'll get into generative AI. But it's the simulation, we should bold that word, simulation of human intelligence through machines. And which means it's not something we should be relying on, right? It's something we use, but just like a car drives, it doesn't drive without gas. Some drive, or power, I should say, some drive with electric. But it takes engineering, human understanding. So I think that's really the important part of understanding artificial intelligence. And we love this quote, AI is the new electricity. Just as 100 years ago, electricity transformed industry after industry, AI is now doing the same. And that's really what's happening. And what's interesting, Shawn, is that I'm a third generation attorney, and I still remember days when change just did not happen quickly. It still doesn't happen quickly in legal, but I think since 2020 and the pandemic that we went through, change has been embraced much more quickly. So would you help me talk a little bit about the everyday use of artificial intelligence and what we're seeing and what's out there?
Yeah, sure. And I'm just going to put, a pin on something you said, Gina, and that is all about making sure that, a human is in the loop. And you'll hear that a lot. And that is so important. And also a little nice plug for the lawyers on the line here that you have all evolved greatly over these years, right? Like Gina, you said, over the past several generations, we went from books to legal research online to e-discovery. You remember the boxes in the rooms where people were going through them and tagging and highlighting and doing all of that, to then e-discovery, which then even evolved further into computer-assisted review, technology-assisted review to help find those needles in the haystack. So I think what we're seeing now is a quicker evolution, but certainly like the legal industry is resilient. They are evolutionary, and it's kind of fun to see this new technology taking off so quickly. So yeah, there are so many use cases, to focus on in legal. And coming from a law firm, we have the business of law and we have the practice of law. And so we kind of balance that, what we do there. So on the business of law side, it's maybe a safer place to start sometimes. Everything from kind of what we're talking about here today, using it for marketing purposes, writing, helping to spark some type of a idea that you might want to flesh out a little bit more. Also on the operations side, maybe analyzing your financials and finding a way to have that write a financial report for you instead of poring over it for hours and trying to like formulate that yourself. And maybe, our finance folks aren't as like great at kind of the wordsmithing of things. So sort of a real jump start for something like that. So those are just a couple examples. On the practice of law side, there are just so many examples, everything, a nice safe place to start again, legal research. We've been using AI in legal research for years, right? It has evolved again. And now you get your results, you check them, you make sure that it's good law, it's on point, and you stand behind your legal research. But then, it evolves to everything to helping you to draft a patent, right? Like, so there are so many examples across the continuum, and it's really about figuring out what you're trying to achieve at your organization.
Elevate your legal expertise with Lawline, the leader in online legal education for over 25 years. Whether you're brushing up on the latest trends or diving into a new area of law, Lawline's extensive library offers on-demand courses designed by legal experts. With Lawline, learning fits your schedule. Access over 2,000 courses from anywhere, anytime. Earn your CLE credits through engaging video courses and interactive tools that make learning both effective and enjoyable. Join thousands of attorneys who are enhancing their practice with Lawline. Sign up today and transform your professional journey. Lawline, legal learning unlimited. Visit lawline.com/FuriaRuble to learn more and for a special discount for podcast listeners.
So let's talk a little bit about the risks.
Yeah, I mean, you are the expert likely in all of these risks, right? You know that we have some recent things that have come down from the American Bar Association and others, and, really making sure that, we are following ethical obligations. And a lot of that I know comes down to, or maybe keys back on that whole technological competency. And I'm sure you'll talk a little bit about that. But, in my role as Chief Innovation Officer, I do need to make sure that we are abiding by our client guidelines. We are keeping their data safe. So we are using tools and platforms that have very high security standards. So we would do that regardless, right? So whether it is a tool that we maybe subscribed to 5-10 years ago, we are still making sure that we are asking the right questions. But with generative AI, it does add in a few other things, right? You need to understand, like, is this system training on what you're putting in there? Is it not? Do you want it to? Do you not? Because there's benefits both ways, right? There is bias. We mentioned it's going to give you an answer, and that answer is based on previous questions that have been asked. If all the questions that have been asked are very biased in a certain direction, well, so too will your answer be, right? So there's just a lot of things to think about there as you're evaluating these systems. So yeah, and Gina, in your role, like, how about you on the whole ethics front?
Well, I mean, this is the whole thing. Generative AI is a great tool to use in law firms, but we have to manage the risks to be able to capitalize on the benefits. And so from an ethics perspective, it's the risks that we have to address, which we're going to get into. And this is really the list, the accountability, the accuracy. Accuracy is so important. It's still machine learning. Bad data in means bad data out. And so we don't know always what is the data that went in. Was it accurate? So it still requires a human interaction, human checking of the information. So there was a great ALM article out that talked about what lawyers are concerned with. And, we supplied this list rather than, you don't have to read the article to know what it said. Attorneys are very concerned about accuracy and hallucinations. And hallucinations are, if you remember back to 2023, there was a lot of media coverage about a small firm in New York that filed a brief. There were some case citations in there. Those cases were not even real. And the problem was they would have figured that out if they actually did the actual legal research and double checked, if they shepherdized them, if they went through that process. So that was what we call a hallucination. In other words, not real, period. But then there's also, and cybersecurity, you should be concerned. It's, in fact, we've gotten several calls. Our company does a lot of crisis communications as well. And we've gotten quite a number of calls in the last few weeks on cyber breaches. And the question is, if it's an open system or if it's not closed within your law firm, who can get in, and then what are they seeing? So one of the things, and I'll talk about this, but I'm going to say it over and over and over again, never, ever, ever use real names, not of clients, not of people. I always fake them. So things like that. Educating lawyers. There's so little time, and you're taking CLE because it's required. It really should be required to do generative AI training the same way a lot of insurance companies are requiring cybersecurity training to understand how to use these tools. In fact, I'm going to be going to a client law firm this week to do prompt training so that they understand how to use it within an ethics framework. So how do you price your services if you're using generative AI? These are things that, every firm has these questions, and of course, security and confidentiality of client and firm data. So this is no different, by the way. As we started, we talked about the fax machine, cell phones, text messages, all these other tools that we've used for so many years. I think the only thing we hadn't had to worry about, Shawn, previously was something called hallucinations. That's pretty new. All of these other things are the same.
On Record PR is produced by Jennifer Simpson-Carr and Matt Henderson, with support from the team at Furia Rubel Communications. This episode is edited by Željko Tomic of Compost Media Flow.